It's time for a reality check.
We're here to deconstruct health and fitness trends and provide tangible advice so you can become 1% better with each choice starting today. Welcome back to Reality Check. We are your hosts, Jess and Jill, and it is 2025. It's January 1st. It's a new year, clean slate vibes like we all love, I think. Jess and I were just talking before we started recording about how we just like set goals and do things. We don't obviously wait for January 1st, but a fresh year, like all of that always feels good to like set goals. It's a good way to use as like a reflection point to check in with yourself, realign your goals. Am I moving in the direction I want to go? If I'm not, what do I need to change? So that's what this is really about, is like if you're zooming out and looking at the next year and beyond, and really like how, I think the idea of like how to set goals is a little like corny and cliche and boring, but we want to do this in a way that like you are about to be bombarded with a lot of stuff within the dieting industry about how to lose weight, what you need to do, the fastest way to do it. And, you know, unfortunately, I talk with my team about how our two biggest months of the year are January and April. January, obviously, because everyone's setting new goals. Unfortunately, April is because everyone went too hard in January. They used methods and approaches and diets that weren't sustainable. And then they're coming to me in panic mode in April because the sun's coming out and it's shorts weather, right? And like, we're getting ready for summer and we're not ready, right? That's like the feeling that people are coming to me with in April. So this is how to avoid that. And this is how to actually like make a change slowly and steadily. And we'll talk about this, but you know, we talk about like identity goals versus like, I want to lose weight, because we really have to go deeper than that or it's never going to happen and it's never going to stick. So that's what this is about. It's like how you actually evolve yourself as a human and step into like this better, fitter, healthier, well-rounded version of yourself so that you don't have to set goals like I want to lose 40 pounds, because those things are going to happen as a byproduct of your choices and the way that you live your life anyway. So I'm going to let Jess kick off with the first one, because I feel like this is like the most important place that you have to start with all of this.
So we wanted to kind of give you guys like a tangible system for setting your goals. And obviously we are fitness coaches, health coaches. So a lot of this, we're going to give examples that have to do with health and fitness and physique. But this system that we're about to talk about can be applied to any goal across the area of your whole life, right? And I want to give a shout out and a recommendation for you guys to read a book that I think really changed my perspective on setting goals. I've always been somebody who sets these huge goals and is like, okay, what's next? I like checking off projects. I read the book, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, and it's all about small, sustainable change, 1% better over time, that sort of concept. But he had this journal and like workbook that you could buy, and I've used it now for probably like I probably have like 10 of them. I've been using it for so many years. And it's called Living Your Best Year Ever Journal. Now, there's a million different habit tracking journals. You don't have to use this particular one. But the way that he created this system really, really helped me to actually check off my goals versus just writing these goals and then a couple months down the line kind of falling off track and then forgetting about them or whatever, because there's a system in place to check in on yourself, which is really how we work with our clients also. Like we're having weekly conversations with our clients, not just about what they want to do, but like, okay, what were your actual inputs? What can we change? How can we improve them? So this is kind of what I want to go over. So when we're talking about big goals, one thing that I like to encourage is that you're looking at your whole life and every area of health, not just physique or physical health. So physical health is an important thing, obviously, right? But so is mental health. So is spiritual health. So are our relationships, our social health. So is, are we feeling fulfilled in our business or our work? Are we financially healthy, or are we getting ourselves in debt over and over, right? So you want to zoom out and look at every area of life. If you guys give this a Google, you can look up the Wheel of Life, and it gives you these 8 different categories, basically. And you can kind of draw it out and rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 and see, where are you out of whack? Where are you off balance? The reason I recommend starting there is because we also have women who come to us who are 10 out of 10 physical health, but they sacrifice their mental health and their families in order to achieve that, right? And that's not healthy, right? So we want to really try to pick a couple big goals that are going to help you fill in that gap to have a really fulfilled, balanced life. Once you figure out what that looks like for you, then you're just going to set 2 or 3 big goals. So I know we might have way more goals than that, right? And we might need to break these things down into mini goals, but set a couple that you're like, could I do this giant, overwhelming thing? And you might feel like it's a little overwhelming. Write it down. Like you could brain dump all the things that you've ever wanted to do in your life, write a bucket list, and then narrow it down to those top 2 or 3 for the year ahead. Now, if you achieve one of them in April, cool, go back to the drawing board and you can add another goal, right? And that's what me and Jill were kind of talking about. Like me and my husband are about to move into what I'm calling our dream house. So we're getting another house ready to rent. That's probably going to be finished up sometime early February. Then I'm going to go back to this drawing board and say, okay, now what's my next goal now that I'm settled in this one, right? So it doesn't have to just be January to January, but you're going to zoom out. You're going to pick those 2 or 3 big goals for now. Then what we're going to do is we're going to break down those goals into very specific actions that are required to achieve those goals. So small daily or weekly steps to be able to move forward towards it. Now, what this might look like, if you have a goal that is weight loss related, right? Maybe you are saying, I'm going to get to the gym and lift weights 3 or 4 times a week. You have to have some sort of system to hold yourself accountable to actually checking those boxes. If I just say I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, maybe my first couple weeks I do, and then it kind of falls to the side, right? So having some sort of habit tracker, some sort of system, some sort of notes app in your phone where you're physically checking it off so that each week you can be like, wow, I did it 3 out of 3 times. Sometimes it might only be 2 out of 3 times, and that's okay. I'll get right back on track next week. Other things might be daily tasks, like every day I'm going to have a little bit of time walking outside, or every day I'm going to laugh and be present with my kids without my cell phone, right? Some of them may be daily, some of them may be weekly, but you want to break down those action items to work yourself a little bit closer and closer towards that goal. I'll give an example for myself. Like I chronically struggle with sleep. That is my biggest physical health area to improve. One of my things, I have an Aura ring that tracks my recovery and all that. One of my things is over the next year, can I just slowly shift my bedtime, my average bedtime, a little bit earlier and earlier, right? Like my hours of sleep aren't super terrible, but it throws me off because some days I need to sleep in because I'm so tired because I stayed up too late. So like coming up with tangible action items, not just saying I want to work on my sleep. It's like, okay, how am I going to actually measure that? And then what we're going to do is we're actually taking action, right? We're not just talking about our goals and then being bummed out that nothing's changing. We are looking at those inputs and saying like, okay, what can I change or improve based on this? So every single week, and I would say also every quarter, evaluating, did I do what I said I needed to set out to do? So every single week looking and saying, okay, my goal was 3 workouts and 8,000 steps a day. How did I do? Okay, I got my 8,000 steps 4 out of 7 days. Maybe next week I can 5 out of 7 days, right? We're just trying to slowly move forward. But I think that the reflection piece and really using your inputs as your measure for success rather than your results as your measure for success is major. We did a whole episode on this on like, are your results getting in the way of your success? Or are your goals getting in the way of your success? And a lot of that episode was about this. It was about if you guys are so results oriented, you got to zoom out and be inputs oriented. The results aren't going to come unless the inputs are there over time. So I feel like this is a common conversation we have with clients where people will be bummed out because they're I'm working so hard at this. Why am I not seeing change? And it's like, well, are we really doing the things that are required to see results? You're tracking your food every single day. You're checking in with me every single week, but your food tracking hasn't changed from before you were working with me. You're not actually hitting the targets that we're setting. You're doing whatever you wanted to do. You just happen to be tracking it, right? Like that's not going to get you the results that you want. So we need to look at our inputs first.
I feel like I just need to say like amen to that statement. Just because you're tracking the things that you were always doing does not make them more effective. You're still not doing the things that you need to do to get the result that you want. You have to actually change them, not just
without being snarky. Yeah. It is very hard for us when clients are like, this program isn't working. And I'm like, what program? Because you're doing the thing you were already doing. And it's like, you want me to just tell you it's okay. You're not doing the things I'm suggesting. So it's not my program you're telling me isn't working. It's
not my program that's not working. Your program doesn't work.
Like, yeah. And again, I'm not like, I work with my clients to set our goals. I'm not just telling them you must do that. I'm not a drill sergeant, but I'm like, you can't do the same things you've always done and expect some change just because now you're checking in with me about those things. So that's kind of the big things. And then we're going to go over other strategies, but here's the summary. Zoom out, big picture, set 2 or 3 big goals, brain dump all of your dreams, make these goals so unrealistic because you can accomplish them little by little. Break them down into actions required. Take daily action and track that action, and then reflect and revise that plan weekly and quarterly. And again, once you hit one of those goals, go ahead and set a new big goal. Or it's okay if one of your goals changes over time. That's okay. But that reflection on the inputs is just absolutely essential.
Yeah, and to tack on to Jess's, and then I'll share a couple of my like initial tips that kind of go along that same theme are that I have actually 2 big projects that I'm working on right now. And, that's why like annual planning is really great for that. But actually it's my annual planning for one of them started in September. So I didn't need to wait for January 1st. I had an idea. I put it together, started a project, and I broke it down by quarter. Well, I did an annual goal, right? And then I broke it down by quarter, and then I broke it down by monthly. And then actually from monthly on my own, I broke it down to like weekly. And then I know my daily inputs that go with that, right? That move that needle. And then because I have this set, like target, right, for each month, that's a way for me to check in with myself and say, am I on track? Am I not? Was I being unrealistic with my initial goal and I need to tweak things? And I don't think that should be a number necessarily of like weight loss for anyone. It can be, but that should be like big picture. And then we should make those tangible goals that Jess had talked about. We're focusing more on our input. So maybe to get to your goal that like 4 days a week in the gym is the most realistic to like really move that needle, but you don't work out at all. So maybe for the first 2 months, it's going to the gym every week, 1 day a week. And then maybe it's doing 1 home workout a week. And then from there, you kind of evaluate, I'm doing a really good job with this. Can I add a 3rd day, but maybe it's only 20 minutes at home to start because I'm feeling overwhelmed, right? Like whatever it is. So that's the way that you'll set goals in that manner and check in with yourself. And that's why it's so important to actually Google this while Jess was talking, that I couldn't remember the exact statistic, but they say that people are 42% more likely to carry out a goal just by writing it down. When it's in your head, it's just like an idea and a vision and like this cool thing. But when you write it, it makes it this like tangible thing that you're working towards now. And that's really, really effective because you writing it down is making it like a real thing. You're like, wow, I might hit this, right? Like all of a sudden your wheels start turning. And then when you start actually like checking in with yourself, and this is what I talk about, and on any consult call with anybody, we look at like what's our foundation look like now? Are there any gaps that we need to fill? Is it the foundation a mess and we need to throw it all away and start from the beginning, right? And then you can set your goals from there. And then the other thing that I think is really important, big picture, and it's a little corny, but I'm going to tell you why I'm saying this is, people always talk about like your why and having like this, you need to have this like intrinsic motivation. It can't be, I want to lose weight. You might want to lose weight. I'm not disagreeing with you, but when I say, I always, there's a concept in behavior change where they say there's 5 levels, right? So you ask yourself, what do you want? I want to lose weight. Okay, why? Because I want to feel better. Why do you want to feel better? Well, I don't feel comfortable in a bikini in the summer. Okay, why don't you feel comfortable in a bikini in the summer? Well, because I don't want my husband to see me in a bikini in the summer. Why? Why don't you want that, right? And all of a sudden now we've gotten to this very granular, deep-rooted problem. And now instead of you saying, I want to lose weight over and over and over, you're like, I need to lose weight this year because I can't stand the way that I look in a bikini in front of my husband because I feel like he sees an old version of myself and I don't want to be this version that I am or whatever it is, right? Like that's going to be so much more motivating for you when you fall off track and you have that written down somewhere and that's in writing, you're going to be like, I got to get back on track here, right? But if it's just, I want to lose weight, it's like, whatever, I'm never going to lose weight. Or
right, like that's a superficial goal. That's
right.
a superficial goal in itself that can just be dismissed. You can discard and be like, it's not that important and justify poor choices unless you're tying it to the real reason. Like there's an underrooted reason in your confidence or in your health or in the fact that you're scared of dying young. Like there's lots of reasons people might have that goal, but a lot of times we don't actually do some introspection to figure it out.
Right.
I love what you said about writing your goal down. I not only write them down, but I like having them present in front of me every day. And again, I feel like sometimes I say this stuff and I'm like, I used to laugh at people who said stuff like this because it sounds so hokey.
That's why I'm like, oh, you're wild. It sounds so corny.
Yeah,
But
yeah. This kind of stuff I used to laugh at thinking it's so hokey. But psychologically, it makes sense. The more and more and more you see something or say something, the more it becomes your identity. So the more your actions follow, your behavior starts to become that person. So when people do vision boards on January 1st, I'm going to do a vision board. I'm going to cut out pictures of these magazines and that's the life I want to live. I used to think that was so silly. I literally have my vision board in front of my desk in my office. So when I'm doing client check-ins, I see it a little bit each day. I'm not studying it. I'm not like, I'm going to manifest this into my life. I'm looking at it and like, oh, cool. Yep. I'm still on track. I'm doing a good job. Right. So like just having that or taking a couple moments each day to journal, like this is the life I'm creating for myself. Do it in the present tense as if it's real, not as if it's a someday lofty goal, because your brain will accept that as truth and your actions will follow. Okay. I'm building my dream home and me and my kids are able to play outside every day. Like this is my particular goal, right? Write it as if it's true. I'm fit and healthy. I nourish my body because it makes me feel good, not because of what anybody else thinks. I'm an active person who goes to the gym 3 days a week. Write that stuff down minimum once a week. But it will actually rewire your brain to make you more likely to do the things required to become that person.
yeah, I love that so much. And then Jess kind of touched on some of this, but like making your goals small and specific. So again, instead of lose weight, maybe it's to track your protein intake 4 days a week. And then like Jess said, maybe it starts as 2 and then it's 3 and then it's 4, or strength train 3 times a week. Maybe it's 20 minutes, right? Maybe that's all your brain has the capacity to do, right? I just had this conversation with a client. She's like, man, I'm really struggling to get that third day. And like, I know I have the time to do it. I don't know why I feel like I'm not motivated. And I'm like, okay, hold on a second. But like, what is actually the hang up here? Is it that like you're going home and you don't feel like going back to the gym? Is it that you feel really tired at 5 o'clock and you're trying to do it at the wrong time of day? Is it that the gym environment doesn't make you feel good? Like, what is the actual thing that's quote, like making you unmotivated or unwilling to go? Maybe it's just genuine. She doesn't have time, right? And 2 is really realistically all she can do. Or maybe we have to start small on the third day of like, go to the gym and go on the treadmill for 10 minutes and then go home, right? Like you're committing, you're showing up. And if that's all you can do, then that's all you can do, right? So making those goals really small and specific and realistic for you to commit to. The 80-20 rule, we hear a lot about like in terms of your nutrition, right? But like in terms of goal setting, identify 1, 2, maybe even 3 habits max that drive 80% of your results, right? And that's what you should put your focus on. So like meal prep and strength training might be your combination. It might be protein and 10K steps a day or 6K steps a day, like whatever it is, right? And then Jess kind of talked about this, but focus on like your systems and your inputs, not the outcome itself. It's not, I need to lose 10 pounds. You know, it's not, I want to lose 50 pounds this year. So I need to lose 10 pounds this month. I need to lose 4 pounds this week. Because for one, weight loss isn't linear and that's going to derail you very easily. But 2, we got to focus on the actual input and the identity of who we are showing up, because that's what's going to stick. Because you could do anything. You could do a gazillion different things to lose weight and do very unhealthy things to lose weight and still reach that goal. That doesn't mean it's going to be sustainable, realistic, or feel good for you, right? So you have to focus on the healthy inputs that are sustainable for your life, that are going to get you that outcome. And that's going to totally change how you show up for them. And then when you're trying to set goals or start new habits, I always use habit anchoring or attaching your habit to existing ones. I send the book Atomic Habits to every single client. Sometimes I send one other habit book, but it uses your brain's like natural tendency to link your behavior. So after you brush your teeth, go walk for 5 minutes. After you brush your teeth, go journal. Whatever it is, right? Like something that you're already doing. After you drink your coffee, do X, Y, and Z. Because it's that thing that like you just do every morning, no matter what. But if you have this like reminder of, oh, I have to do this thing with something I'm already doing, it's going to be so much easier for you to stick to.
And that goes back to what Jill said about creating systems rather than focusing on outcomes, but also like focus on systems rather than willpower. a lot of women get, and I guess this is everybody, women and men, we just tend to work with more women. So many people will say, oh my gosh, I think I just can't do it. My willpower stinks. And it's like, dude, my willpower sucks too. Let's get to the bottom of it and let's come up with a system to help future you out. Let's figure it out so that we can plan on it together, because then it won't be as hard. Like I use the example when I used to work in an office job where I was at a cubicle all day. If I drove home after, there was no way I was going back out to the gym, because I'm like, I sit down, I'm so tired. I've been lazy all day pretty much, right? Because I've been at a desk. I don't want to go back. It could be as simple of a shift as, okay, I pack my gym clothes and a snack so that I have to stop at the gym on my way home. Because if I go before I get home, I'm more likely to get a workout in, right? Create systems for future you rather than thinking you need to rely on willpower. Yes, we can strengthen our willpower over time. Yes, discipline is a muscle you can build, but don't rely on, if you rely on your willpower, you're setting yourself up for success and you're almost creating this identity as if you're a failure. You are not a failure. Let's just figure out a system to make the action a little bit easier or to remove some barriers that might be in the way.
Yeah, 100%. Like if somebody told me, I think I've used this example before, but like, hey, you got to build this house in the next 3 months. Good luck. I'd be like, I'm not equipped for this. I have no idea what I'm doing, right? Like I was just set up for failure. It's the same thing as when you say, I'm going to lose X pounds and go from not working out to working out 5 days a week and eating all this protein and tracking all my calories and being perfect. It's going to be so overwhelming. And I'm like, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing. Whereas if somebody just held my hand and said, this is step one, this is how you do X, Y, and Z, right? Like, of course it's going to be easier. And then aligning your environment for your goals, right? So like if you already have, if you're like, my husband eats really unhealthy, he can eat whatever he wants and not lose weight. It might be, this sounds crazy but sometimes I say this to people and they're like, oh my God, I never thought about doing that. Sit him down and say, listen, this is really important to me. I need to do this. This is the change that I'm going to make. I'm not asking you to make these changes. I'm just asking you to help support me in these harder moments and setting myself up to be successful. So it might be having a conversation for your environment. It might be cleaning out the pantry. It might be just putting your new healthy food choices right at the front of the fridge, where instead of grabbing the bag of chips, you're grabbing a bowl of strawberries and blueberries. That's what I do when I cut up fruits and veggies. I literally cut up, not cut up. I wash carrots, I cut up cucumbers, and I put them in individual baggies in the fridge, and I line them up front and center for Mason, literally next to the ranch. So anytime he wants a snack, that is the first thing he's going to see when he opens the fridge. Then there's grapes, then there's apples and peanut butter cups, and then there's strawberry and blueberries. The last thing, now he comes downstairs and grabs Sun Chips, but guess what? They're in a box in a pantry in the basement with the door closed. Actually,
there's a bigger barrier to entry. And that's the same thing of the setting up systems. We do the same exact thing. If I put fruits and veggies in my drawers in my fridge, they go there to die. But if I clean them or cut them up and I put them on the shelf, even if I don't feel like having them, I'm like, damn it, I don't want them to go to waste. So I guess I'll have it, right? Yeah. Whereas, and my husband eats more processed stuff at home than I do. He's 6'2" and I'm 5 feet tall. We put that stuff on the top shelf in the pantry. And again, it's like, if I really want the Pop-Tarts or whatever the thing is, I can go get them because I really want them. But I'm not eating them out of, oh, they just happen to be there. So it's the first thing I think of, because when I open the pantry, I don't look at them.
Yeah. And it actually makes a massive difference, because you really might forget that it's up there because you're not seeing it every single time you open that. But Mason has to walk through 3 doors to get Sun Chips. So I know if he really wants Sun Chips, he really wants Sun Chips. And he's just
probably going to have them less.
And I don't have any rules about that. He doesn't overeat them, because sometimes he's like, I don't feel like going to the basement. I think I'm just going to eat grapes. So I'm like, great. That's where your laziness is paying off right now.
That's what I do for ice cream. Like we have a freezer in our basement, and ice cream is like, okay, if it's here and we're watching TV, I'm just going to go grab it. If it's in my basement, it forces me to have this little self-dialogue of like, do I want it that bad? Not really. If I'm too lazy to go in the basement, I freaking did not need the ice cream, right? Like create systems like that for yourself. And that, again, we're saying ice cream isn't off limits. None of these things are off limits. But if you want to have these things less frequently, don't have them in your immediate environment. Just remove them from the house.
Yeah. And that ties into like all or nothing mindset, which obviously that covers a whole slew of things. But when we're focusing on systems and inputs and aligning your environment and doing all of these other little tweaks, it's going to pull you out of all or nothing, because then if you are, like Jess said, choosing the ice cream or choosing the Pop-Tart or choosing whatever, it's that once in a while thing and it's going to be okay, right? You're not going to feel that mental guilt. Initially, you might, right? Like sometimes clients will do everything right. I used this as a client example a couple of weeks ago on social media where all her inputs were absolutely beautiful and like perfect in that it wasn't like perfect textbook, like every meal was amazing and healthy. Perfect as in it was very balanced, but she was feeling guilty about the choices she was making at the end of her night because she was like, I feel like I'm indulging in a sweet treat. And I'm like, hold on, listen, you're hitting your protein goal. You're eating so many fruits and veggies and nutrient dense foods in your day. What harm is it that you want to have like a small ice cream cone before bed? Great. Like you are doing, and you're hitting 10,000 plus steps a day because that's what works for her life. Right. So like, she's doing all these other things. So sometimes even if you're doing it, that's why monitoring data is so important. She was feeling guilty. Or a client that's reverse dieting right now that's eating 2,000 calories and she's like, I am so grateful that you're making me track this because I feel like I'm eating so much food and that I'm overeating and I need to cut back. And I had no idea. I'm barely scratching 2,000 calories when I'm eating. And I'm like, that's why this is so important to have that awareness, right? So that removes them from that all or nothing mindset to make that change. And
I like what you said to your next bullet point about being curious over judgmental. Again, we try to take this approach with our clients as their coaches, but to have that approach with yourself, being curious rather than judgmental, gives you flexibility to ditch that all or nothing mindset. It gives you permission to make small steps. Hey, I wasn't perfect. I didn't hit all my goals, but I did a little more than I did last week. How cool. I'm becoming a new person, right? Rather than beating yourself up, asking like, okay, what happened here? What can I learn? What can I control? Sometimes there's stuff that happens in our week that we physically couldn't do anything about. So evaluating and adjusting rather than judging, placing guilt on yourself, beating yourself up in those
just
moments.
throwing it all away.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always say, talk to yourself. It's going to take some time to shift that internal dialogue. Talk to yourself like your friend is coming to you. If Jess came to me, obviously we're at different points in our life, but let's say Jess came to me and was like, I overindulged last night. I had so much ice cream. I feel terrible about myself. I blew my diet. I can't believe I did that. I'm so stupid. I don't even know why I bother. Do you think I'd be like, damn, bitch, you need to get your shit together? Like you fucked up. I would be like, Jess, it's okay. Like it was one night. Today's a new day. Like this is it. It was one hiccup. What made you do that? Right. Let's be logical. Let's put coach hat on. Why did you do that? What made you want to overindulge? What did your environment look like? What were your emotions like? All of a sudden, now we have data to go off of why that happened and what we can change in the future. Our internal dialogue is so nasty. Like, talk to yourself like your kid is coming to you saying, I messed up, or your spouse, or your best friend, or your sister. When you change that, you're like, damn, I would never say those things to one of those people, right? But we're so judgmental of ourselves. For what? Nobody's listening to that internal dialogue. So I feel like that's a powerful change that you can make. And it is an easy one. And sometimes you have to be a little delusional for a second. Sometimes it might feel really corny for you to internally be like, hey, girl, it's okay. Like, but dust it off. It works, right? Over time, you're going to condition and rewire that so that you don't speak that way to yourself anymore.
Yeah. I like visualizing your future self too. So one of the things on your list was act as and for your future self. One exercise that I'll often give clients is to kind of like zoom out and visualize, what does Jill 2.0 look like? How does that chick behave? What does your day-to-day look like? Because then you can kind of like picture a day from beginning to end. What things are you doing now that you wouldn't be doing in that ideal dream world, right? It doesn't mean you need to become that person overnight, but you need to have a clear picture of it in your head. There was a client that I was working with this week who is pretty close to retirement. And she's like, oh, I have a week off. I'm so excited. Like, I've been looking forward to retirement for so long. And I'm like, okay, cool. What are we doing this week that's different? Like, let's come up with a game plan. And it doesn't need to be something health and fitness related, but like, how do you want to live out a dream retired life? Because it's not going to be just watching Netflix for 3 hours a day, sleeping in and then not feeling good. And right. Like how do you picture that chick living? And, she said it was a really cool exercise because she's never thought of it. She's like, I don't know. I've been looking forward to retirement for so long, but I've never really thought of how I was going to live in retirement. And I'm like, sweet, this is your week off. We're going to practice that this week. Again, for me, it's like, ooh, I spend too much time on my phone, checking messages, looking at work stuff, whatever. I've been actively trying to put my phone in the other room when I'm with my kids doing like one-on-one playtime, because that's future me. Doesn't do that stuff. Isn't half in and distracted with work versus kid time. I'm all in either thing. So anyway, zoom out, picture future you. How does that person behave? What does your day-to-day look like, so that you can start living like that person a little bit more and more?
Yeah. And then really just last few things, and then we're going to give you like actual things that you can do. Like, where do I start with this? So for one, start small, right? Start small with your goals. If something feels overwhelming, check your progress, reflect what's working, what's not, what do I need to adjust? I think weekly is really important, which is why we do that with clients. But if it feels overwhelming, scale it back if you need to, or maybe you're doing really good and you didn't challenge yourself enough and you can ramp it up a little bit more, right? All of that being said, no matter what, you should celebrate the heck out of every single win, no matter how small it is. Not just, yay, I lost 1 pound this week, but your consistency with your protein intake. You're like, man, I got 1,000 more steps in every single day this week. I can't believe I did that. That was actually not as hard as I thought, right? Like, those are the things that you should celebrate. Or a client, I actually have this win screenshot because it made me so happy, but a client sent me a win this week that said, she was prepping her meals and packing her lunch on Sunday night for Monday morning at work. And her husband was in the kitchen helping her. And she turned to him and she was like, oh my God, I've been doing this for almost 3 months. Every single week I've been prepping and planning my food and it just feels normal to me now. And she was like, I'm so proud of myself. Like, I told him, like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And this is just like what I do now. That's what happens when you do it slowly over time. So it was a really cool win to hear from her. So,
And it could be a shift in your identity in terms of, like, I have a client who was like, hear me out. I'm really proud of this, even though I made a choice that I wasn't happy with. She is somebody who struggled with binge eating at night, and she would eat a whole pizza or she would eat a couple boxes of mac and cheese. She said, you know what I did? I slipped back into my old habit. I was having an emotional day. I made a box of Kraft mac and cheese. And she said, I ate a few bites of it and I was like, this doesn't even taste good. What am I doing? Because she's like, if I'm going to overindulge, I'm going to enjoy every bite. It's going to be something I really love. This is not worth it for me anymore. And she's like, that realization in itself shows that I'm becoming a new person, right? So that the tangible outcome, the weight loss might not be there yet, but you're becoming that person that is worthy of celebrating.
Yeah, I love that. So we want to give you some like actual tangible things that you can do, right? We gave you like the foundation and the structure and like big picture, but like the actual inputs that you can practice January 1st today and beyond in 2025 and any year after that, specifically around obviously health, fitness, physique, just actual action items that you can consider adding. And I want to frame this from where we typically start clients that come to us, because there's definitely like an average, right? And everyone's different. So you can scale this up or scale it back as much as you need to. But we're just going to give you like an average of like where we have clients start based on what their inputs already look like. A lot of times we have clients coming to us already working out 3 or 4 days a week, but they're just not being smart with the way that they're doing it, right? So that's not necessarily changing in terms of their time commitment. What it looks like in terms of like their schedule, or, we always joke about how like day one is the dopamine hit, right? Where people are like, I can work out 5 days a week. And we're like, no, like you're working out 1 day a week right now. We're not going to jump to 5, right? So just finding that like realistic balance for yourself based on schedule. But also when we're setting these initial goals, we're not saying, we're finding a middle ground of like, we're challenging you, but we're meeting you where you're at. But we know that you're coming to us wanting to make a physique change with some level of timeline in your mind, right? So like, if you came to me and said you had no timeline, we might start a little bit smaller than what we typically do, right? But we have to expedite because we know people want results. And obviously that's what we're here to deliver. So I want to give that disclaimer before we spit these out. If they don't apply to or they're overwhelming, scale it back.
Dial it back. And sometimes we dial it back. Oftentimes we will dial it back with our clients if they're going through a life season that doesn't allow for as much commitment. We have a couple of clients right now who they started at 3 or 4 days a week and they're in this crazy work season and then they're getting ready for Christmas with their kids. So we dial it back to just 2 lifts a week. We never say, okay, I'm just not going to focus on this right now and I'm going to do nothing, right? We dial it back during those seasons and then we can ramp it back up during a slower season, and that's okay.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So Obviously, we're always immediately going to jump to strength training. So it might be 2 days a week. I would say that most clients start off aiming for 3 days a week. I think it's super realistic. And that could be 30 minutes. That might be 50-minute workouts, right? It might be gym. It might be home, whatever it is that works for you. I think in terms of like, I want to see a physique change and having some type of deadline, that 4 days is the like perfect amount of really making change, but also allowing for 3 full days of active recovery in some fashion for yourself. But I would say from like a maintenance standpoint, making a change, usually it's like 2 to 3 days to start. I think 3 to 4 is really ideal for
Optimal.
people. Yeah, to make those changes.
And regardless of the number of days, we are tracking our lifts to ensure progressive overload. So you are getting stronger over time with either your weights, or you're doing a little bit more in terms of your reps over time. We're training in that type of way. We're not going to the gym 3 or 4 times a week to see how many calories we can burn. That is not as effective. The second thing, we are eating more protein. So a lot of people think they are eating plenty of protein, and they're not, just simply because we eat too many processed packaged foods. So you can, if you want to track your macros and be specific with it, we would have you track grams and aim for 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight daily. Now, if you have a lot of weight to lose, that might feel really overwhelming and unattainable. Just increase it a little bit over time. I would usually say if most women could start with a goal of like 120 or more grams of protein a day, you're moving in the right direction. If you do not want to get that tedious with tracking, maybe in your habit journal, you have a goal of a certain number of servings per day. Maybe you can eat 4 servings of protein a day, and we can define it. Precision nutrition, that's where I got my nutrition certification. They have a lot of really great free resources. If you look up precision nutrition portion serving guide based on your hand size, it will kind of demonstrate, okay, here's an average of how much you're eating if you eat a steak that looks like the size of the palm of your hand, things like that. So eat more protein, lift weights 3 to 4 times a week. And then for all of these things, we always have clients actually track first for a week or 2 before we are setting any of these goals. So again, if somebody's only eating 60 grams of protein right now, maybe we start them with a goal of 80 or 100, not bumping them right up. Same goes for steps. So maybe we're increasing their average step target by 1,000. We're not just jumping everybody up to 10,000 steps a day.
I think that's a good point. I don't think we really touched on that, of like, it's also really important to like audit everything first before you start setting these goals. Take the first 2 weeks or last 2 weeks of December, however you want to do it, first 2 weeks of January, next 2 weeks, whatever you want to do, and audit yourself, and do it from, again, a very curious, not judgmental place. If you don't work out at all, if you eat 60 grams of protein, who cares? Just audit yourself and get an average of your calorie intake, your fiber intake, your water intake, your protein, your workouts, everything, your sleep hours.
What's your baseline?
Get a baseline so that you are setting goals that actually make sense, and you are meeting yourself where you're at. And then your weekly and regular reflections, check-ins, touch points, and adjustments will flow a lot more easily than if you just say, I'm going to work out 3 days a week and get 10,000 steps and drink a gallon of water a day because someone on the internet told you to.
And again, if you've now hit 5,000 steps for the last 6 weeks and you're like, oh, whoa, it doesn't even feel like a challenge anymore. This is now my new norm. Cool. Now let's bump your goal up to 6,000 or 7,000. That's how we approach it with our clients.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one, tracking colors or fruits and vegetables or fiber. Some sort of way to track nutrient-dense whole foods. If you are tracking macros and fiber, I don't know if this is the number you tend to go off, Jill, 10 to 15. We want to aim for about 10 to 15 grams per 1,000 calories, or you could base it on your amount of carbs per day. But typically what that looks like for most adult women that we work with is you're aiming for like 25 to 35 grams of fiber daily. If you are not tracking macros or specific nutrients like that, aim for 4 servings of fruits or veggies a day. Aim for more plants, right? Like we could aim for having rice or oatmeal or potatoes instead of carbs that come in boxes. So that I would have something around that, around whole food or colorful food.
Love that. And then we set goals. I have a client who has loved this, where I have on her calendar and she loves to just like check this off, but she has like 5 to 10 minutes of like personal development time a day. It could be anything that she wants. It could be 5 minutes of journaling. It could be 5-minute meditation. It could be 20-minute yoga if that's what she feels like doing that day, right? But she likes to say, I am like, because it hasn't become like truly like second nature habit for her. She's like, I need that on my calendar, like check it off. So that's what we do. But one of the things Jess had on her list was walks in sunshine. And I program this for clients a lot because we're hitting things from like a lot of different angles by getting a walk outside in nature in the sun, right? But it's a super easy goal. I have a client that works in a hospital setting and she does 3 5 to 10 minute outside walks a day. She sets an alarm at a certain point, or her second one's actually right after her lunch. And that one's actually a little bit longer, but she does it to get her steps because she's sedentary all day. And she goes and does 3 walks a day, and then she parks her car a little bit further, right? So those are the things that you do. Now she doesn't have to spend hours on her night or on her walking pad at night making up for her sedentary life all day, right? That's the things that are going to make these little changes. Literally for weeks, she has had a goal every morning to go outside. She puts her jacket on and walks to the front of the hospital for 5 minutes outside. That seems like a lot, right? But she is setting a goal and that's slowly going to evolve. She gets her steps like nobody's business every day. It's no problem for her. So having little goals like that are super helpful and important to multiple birds with one stone, right?
And if we're zooming out at that wheel of life, like that's hitting our physical health and it's hitting our mental health. Like I have a client, it's funny because she works in a hospital too. She really struggles with anxiety and depression, like really has a hard time with it. Ever since she started using her lunch break as an outside walk, she said that it's been insane how much her symptoms have gone down just from getting that time outside. Okay, the rest of the things that we put on our list can kind of overlap into different things. I just wanted to give you guys examples. It doesn't have to be all health fitness related. I know I had mentioned earlier, one of the things on my list is like spending present time with my kids and my husband where I don't have my phone or where we're just laughing and playing, not talking about our projects that we're working on, right? So you guys can come up with goals that have to do with other things. Like if you have a financial goal, making coffee at home every day rather than going to Starbucks, right? You're saving $5 a day or $6 a day or whatever that is. It could be something that little that you're checking off. Personally, I tend to make them in the positive. So I'll say, make coffee at home or coffee or tea at home or whatever, rather than saying, don't go to Starbucks, right? Because we don't want to have this psychological warfare where I'm like, I can't do this thing. And then I feel guilty if I do it. So I never say, don't do this. Don't have your phone when you're playing with the kids. I'll say 2 hours without my cell phone in the evenings. And then I'll check that box, right? So we're making it a positive thing. Do you want to go over other examples or?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Like I just said, that 5 to 10 minute time every day. I have one client who does a brain dump every night before bed because she feels really overwhelmed with all of the things she quote like has to do, right? So every night she does a brain dump. I talk about a lot how every single Sunday night it like sets me up for the week. It feels so good that while I'm doing like my meal prep, while turkey is cooking in the pan or veggies are in the oven, I have my planner out for the week. I am writing in everything that's non-negotiable. So I write in every appointment, every phone call I have scheduled, every meeting, every whatever. I block off my Mondays for all my client check-ins, my kids' sports, right? Anything that I have to do. And what also falls in that category is my workouts. My workouts are top priority on my list of where are these going to fit in, right? So I fit them in, and then anything else that I want to do is scheduled around that. It's funny, like friends that I have locally, I joke with them about like, I have to look at my planner first and see like what feels good. If I have like a heavy week, like, do I really want to hang out Friday night? Like I might need it to be Sunday night. So anyway, all of that being said, like little things like that are super important. And the other thing, I talked to about how I was never a morning person. I lived like that. I defined myself that way. I'm not a morning person. I never will be. And then now I am. I get up at like 6 o'clock every morning, sometimes a little bit earlier, and I get my 60-minute walk in. I use that 60-minute walk for absolutely whatever I want. If I feel overwhelmed and I need to catch up on work, I do that. If I want to read a book, I do that. If I want to watch an episode of reality TV, I do that. Whatever I want, I'm doing a healthy thing on the walking pad, getting steps and moving my body. I'm allowed to use that time. I just woke up one day and said, I want to be a morning person. So I was a morning person. And then eventually my sleep cycle aligns with that, where I used to go to bed at midnight and now I go to bed at like 10. So anything like that, I think is super important too. And we didn't really talk about that in terms of like their internal language. That could be a whole other episode. But
well, I like what you said about adding it on your schedule too. We didn't really talk about that either.
Yeah.
Like the most basic concept of setting goals is the SMART goals: specific, attainable, measurable, whatever. Put it on your calendar. Again, this goes back to creating systems. But my mom the other day was like, "Do you really have to go to the gym today?" And I'm like, "Yeah, because if I don't, it's not about this one workout today. It's okay. My work day is super busy tomorrow. Thursday night we have this thing with the kids. Like, if I don't go today, I won't get my 3 workouts in this week. So yes, this is my time. I do have to go, right? So like, zooming out and looking at your week and physically scheduling it. If you're somebody who's like, well, I just meal prep gets away from me, I forget to go grocery shopping. Okay, let's put that on your calendar for a 2-hour block where you're at least planning something, and then or maybe you're making a grocery order online and you're going to pick it up the next day to save time, right? But you need to carve out that time for your future self and create those systems if it's not just happening, right? These things, for me, I love working out, and it's not going to happen organically unless I plan it into my week.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's so easy to say you have other things to do. Of course you have other things to do. We all have other things to do, a million things, right? So I think it's important to approach it that way. And also schedule in fun time, schedule in time to do something fun. When Jess talked about the wheel of life, social fun things are so important for your overall health. I've been trying to be a lot more intentional with things like that recently, even if it's just a phone call. Sometimes I just call Jess and talk to her kids. Sometimes I just call my sister, and my husband's like, "What are you guys talking about?" I'm like, "Nothing," but it's what we would be doing if we
lived close. Yeah.
out hanging out. We'd probably be talking about a bunch of nothingness, right? But like, that's what we do. She might be sitting on the couch or driving, and I might be doing the same thing, and we just talk. That time is really important. Or maybe you're calling a family member and checking in, or I set aside time to like text friends sometimes that maybe I try to be really intentional in my friendships, right? And say like, man, so-and-so told me she was doing this week, or this happened this past week. I should check in with her and ask, how is that thing going? How is your kid going with this? And that time is important, right? And like, I'm scheduling a dinner with friends this weekend. I'm moving across the country. I have a lot going on, and I still make time for, one, the people that matter to me, but two, that social time is just really important overall.
Mental health, your social circles are so important. And like, you can zoom out and also think like, when are the times in my life that I feel most mentally free? Or that I feel like, oh, I'm just happy, but I'm not trying. Like for me, it's like listening to live music or watching a comedian or something. So me and Brett intentionally try to plan date nights where we go and watch music, right? Like, so try to figure out what are those things for you that just feel like they bring you life. Because it doesn't always have to be goals about, you're not more worthy or more valuable if you set more goals, right? It's also about experiencing and living the life and liking the process along the way.
Yeah. And then just doing anything that you need that makes you feel good, right? My husband's thing is that there are no dishes in the sink before we go to. I don't care, but I know that means a lot to him and his environment. So I honor that. And I also do it before, like I'm home all day. So I make sure that there are no dishes in the sink when he gets home. He makes me breakfast every morning. I make sure there are no dirty pans in the sink by the time he gets back, right? So those are the things that like help his environment. My thing, he jokes about this all the time, how he rearranges the pillows now, even if I'm not home, before he goes to bed on the couch, because I just like a clean sweep before I go to bed so that I come out and I'm like, wow, my house is so peaceful, right? But like sometimes if we don't do that, it's like dog toys are everywhere. Mason left half his laundry there. The pillows are all over the floor because the dogs were nuts. That doesn't feel good to wake up to, right? So it's like these silly little things. That it's a routine, and now we think it's funny. I don't get annoyed about the pillows. It just makes me happy. And because of that, I buy really pretty expensive pillows because I like to do that. So it's just those little things in life that like make you happy, bring you peace, bring you joy, and help you enter the day on a clean slate, feeling really good, so that nothing is like triggering you from the second you open your eyeballs.
I cannot wait for Anthony and Brett to get on this podcast, guys. We're gonna have have to have an episode at some point where it's those two talking about our routines and our habits, because honestly, they are the ones that keep us together in terms of tidiness and helping out around the house.
Really, I actually thought I was a really clean person until I married him. And I was like, wow, I feel like his toddler sometimes. So because of that, I'm really intentional with those little things that matter to me. That's we could do a whole marriage episode on that in terms of health for sure. But yeah, that's really it, guys. Just setting those like tangible goals for yourself. And really meeting yourself where you're at, checking in with yourself, celebrating things, and focusing on systems and not just the outcomes. And really like defining your purpose and setting like super realistic, attainable goals for yourself. And just be curious, not judgmental. We're just living life, right? We all screw up. We're all trying to figure it out. So one little air quote slip up, it's not even a slip up, right? It's just a learning opportunity. It's just something that didn't feel good that maybe you don't want to do again. And that's really all of it is. So I hope that was helpful in how you approach 2025 and beyond. And anything else for you, Jess? I think we're good, right?
No, I think that's great. We would love to hear about your guys' goals. Maybe you can check in with us as accountability. If you guys want to comment on this episode or on our Instagrams or whatever, let us know. 2 weeks in, a month in, 3 months in. We want to hear from you 6 months from now when you're still making action items, because you guys are going to see awesome results if you go about it with these systems.
Awesome. That is all for this episode, and we will catch you guys next time.